I'm no fortune teller, but if your diary is the same thing for the next 5 years, you are going to be in the same place in the next 5 years. If you want to be an A player, whether it's a leader, you're a manager, CEO, you're going to have to get better influence skills. Selling is everything. Would you agree with that?
Let's give people some quick fire sales techniques.
Welcome to the A Players Podcast, the place where we build and interview leaders in their field so that you can hone your skills and be at the top of your game, allowing you to make the most out of any situation and reach high levels of success. I'm your host, Haydon, coach to very high income earners, and I'm on a mission to give everyone the opportunity to step into wealth by giving you the skills, tools, and actionable steps to go that next level. Today, we're going to be talking about sales, not just sales, but sales from the UK's #1 sales trainer, Andy Bounds. Just a quick reminder before we start to interview Andy about how he builds great salespeople. A quick reminder that the A Players podcast and community remains free. That's because it's my mission to give back and share with you, the listener, knowledge gained from working with highly successful individuals and the extensive PhD research in management science. In line with allowing us to do this and achieve that mission, we ask that you help by clicking follow or subscribe on this podcast and sharing it with somebody that you just feel may help them out a little bit more. And for those that are eager to dive deeper and how to boost their income, we have the 100K Club as well. Just click on the little padlock on Spotify and sign up on there, and you can get even more content about how you increase your income. So let's jump into the show. Andy Bounds, thank you for coming on the A Players podcast, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, mate. Look, I'm going to give you an introduction anyway, but you don't need no introduction. You probably see you all over LinkedIn. You've got books on sales and communication, being a great leader. They're all out there. We'll list those books at the end. But mate, a reason for coming on the podcast today is people are missing out on opportunity when it comes to sales. So I wanted you to get on and really tell us, how do you coach and build world-class sales leaders?
Okay, so there's various things to do, but the most important word is the word habits. You know, we're human beings, we're creatures of habits, and the most successful people are just getting good habits and they do the right thing without thinking. So when I do coaching, when I do training, whatever you want to call it, the outcome is that people's habits are changed. Now, when you have a look at working in sales, the main habits you need to get into: initiate and accelerate. So you need to be able to initiate new opportunities, and then you need to be able to accelerate them along. And as long as you do those two things, you're probably fine. So how do we get in the habits of doing that all the time without thinking? As someone who is a sales leader, you need to encourage your team to get in the habit of doing that. So we then spend time with the leaders helping them do that. So it's all about habit embedding within yourself and habit embedding within your team.
So you work with the managers and you work with the sales teams as well, and you also work with business owners. So what size companies do you range from?
Well, all sorts, really. I would say 80% plus of what we do are very large companies, you know, your blue chips, your multinationals, all that sort of stuff. We do, the rest of the work is with sort of owner managers. So we like doing both, actually. We like the big companies. It's really cool to have a huge impact on people's habits in an enormous company. You know, that's great. And we've still got people who say to us, the thing you taught me 15 years ago, I still do it. You know, that's cool. But then it's also lovely to work with the owner managers as well, because if that works for them, you use this word a lot, but it's not often literally true, but it is life-changing for an owner manager to know how to sell more. You know, it gives them not just the income, but it just gives them the freedom of thought and the freedom of time and the freedom for the family. That is what they went into business for in the first place, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So all different size of businesses, you're going to go in there and change habits. And this isn't just about giving them sales skills, is it? This is about, like, okay, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So what sort of things do you, A, teach them, and B, how do you develop the habits? I mean, tell us some stories about how you've the people you've met along the way and what you've done to change their lives.
Right, cool. So let's do some habit stuff to start with. And so one person whose habits had to change, of course, was my own. So before I started my own business, I was an employee and I was quite happy. And then I went in business on my own, and I thought that would be nice and easy. And a lot of people said I was very good at training. So how hard could it be to have a training company? Well, it turns out it was extremely hard. And I was quite surprised by how hard it was. So I needed to get in good habits. And there are certain things that successful people relentlessly do that made them successful. So some of them are sort of like the stuff you tend to see on LinkedIn, which is like, I get up early and I think I'm a winner and I talk into the mirror and I see myself successful and all that sort of stuff. And that's fair enough if that's your bag. But the thing I find really useful is I think, what stuff do I need to do every day to make me successful? Like, what do I need to do every day? So it sounds really petty, this, Lewis, but it's things like every day I need to follow up that day's meeting. So if I've had a meeting with someone, I need to follow it up that day. I mean, the golden rule of sales is delay is never good. So if I meet with someone on a Monday, but I don't follow up till the Thursday, well, I've just brought that delay on myself. So I need to follow up at the end of each day. I know it's not very sexy, but it's really important. Yeah. And another thing is that people struggle a lot with sales is they meet someone, have a good meeting, and then they get ghosted. So then I need to get in the habit of at the end of every meeting, say, before we go, let's just agree what our actions are going to be. And let's agree when we're going to have our next conversation. Let's get it in our calendar. Let's avoid telephone tennis. Let's make sure we arrange the date of meeting 2 during meeting 1. And I know it's boring and it's not very sexy, but if every single meeting you have ends with actions and the date of the next meeting, you never get ghosted. If you always follow up at the end of every day, then it means that you always have time to do this. Another thing I found I need to do to be successful is I need to ask people who like me, if I can find any of them, for referrals, So it's great that I've increased your sales. Who else do you know who wants to sell more? And that's absolutely pivotal to my success. So guess what? I need to do it every day. It's not very sexy, Lewis, but at the start of every single week, I know without fail, I'm going to ask for some referrals. I'm going to follow up every meeting I've done that day. And on top of that, every single meeting I have, I'm always going to have actions and next steps. None of it's sexy, but that's the thing that drives my success more than any arm-waving stuff that you might see on LinkedIn.
Look, mate, the stuff that you've just been speaking about, right? This is the real talk of what it actually takes in business. And I think people might be listening to this podcast and think, fuck, I'm just going to go away and have some nice little mindset tips from Andy Bounds and Lewis Haydon here of how I can make myself feel a little bit better about the sales that I'm not getting. But something I've learned from you of being a client of yours and from what you've just said, mate, is, look, this is what it's actually going to take. You said something to me, Andy. If you haven't got the time, then you need to look at the diary. How do you spell time? Diary. So look, if it's not in that diary, shit isn't happening and you're not getting the results.
Yeah, that's right. And let's talk. I know that people listening will want some sales skills, so we'll do some of that in a few minutes. But let's just talk about this idea about diary, what you've just said, or Outlook calendar for some people who don't like to use the word diary. What I mean is this: if you want to always do something, so habit change, you've got to know what you want to do. So that's the first thing. So let's say ask for referrals. So that's the thing you want to do. So you know what you want to do. That's the first thing. Second thing, you have to put time in the diary in your Outlook calendar. You have to schedule time to do it, because the thing that we do with our time is whatever our Outlook calendar tells us to do. All right. So you and I are both extremely busy young gentlemen. Well, maybe you're a bit younger than me, but we're really busy. But yet here we are having this lovely conversation. Why? Because we put it in our Outlook calendar. And if we hadn't put it in the Outlook calendar, we get to the week and go, oh, we didn't have time to have that conversation. You did have time. You just didn't put it in the calendar. Right. So you need to know what you want to change, like ask for referrals. Number 2, you need to put it in your calendar. And most people don't do that. Right. And the third thing you need to do is you want someone to hold you to account. So posh people call that an accountability partner. In Liverpool, where I'm from, we sometimes call it a study buddy. We just need someone who isn't us. And the reason you need to do that, Lewis, is let's say you decide you're going to ask for referrals, and let's say you put it in your Outlook calendar every day. And then the reminder comes up in the middle of a Monday morning when you're quite busy and quite stressed. What are you going to do? You're just going to press snooze or dismiss, right? Because you're going to say, I know I'm supposed to do this, but I can't be bothered. But if someone checks up on you at the end of the day and says, did you ask for that referral? Oh, right, you didn't. Okay, well, you have to ask for 2 tomorrow. I'll check up on you tomorrow. So whether that is your boss or whether it's your partner or whether you get a lovely coach like you, Lewis, to sort of hold people to account, someone has to hold you to account, because as we all know, good intentions have a finite length. All right, so you have a good intention, but after 3 or 4 weeks, days, months, years, whatever it is, it begins to drift off. It's not as exciting anymore. And unless someone checks us and says, are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you doing it? Then that's where it drops off. So that anyone listening to this, if you want to change your habit for something, the 3 things you need are, number 1, what do you want to change? Ask for referrals. Number 2, your diary, your Outlook calendar, schedule time in there. And number 3, you have to ask someone to hold you to account regularly to make sure that you make this change that you said you wanted to. If you have all 3, success becomes inevitable. Yeah. Like literally inevitable. If any of them are missing, you're in a mess.
Any of them are missing, you're in a mess. I mean, this is very similar to, we had an elite hypnotist come on a few episodes ago, Stuart Walter, and he
Yeah, yeah.
works with 44 gold medalists, mate. And he said exactly the same thing. Look at what a gold medalist does to record their performance, and they have Olympic coaches for a
Mm-hmm.
reason. The best in the world, professors, doctors, all sorts of people coming in, and it just down to that one reason, holding them accountable.
Yeah.
Hold them accountable. You say you're going to do shit, you're going to do it. You want to be really successful. You want to be in the 100K club. You want to be an A player. Well, look, you've committed to the game. I'm going to hold you accountable to it.
Yeah, and having a coach, it's a funny thing, actually. There are some people I speak to who think having a coach is almost a sign of weakness, like you shouldn't need one. And I say, Djokovic still has a coach just for his backhand. And Djokovic is better at his backhand than any of us are at anything. And he still has a coach.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like, get over yourself a bit. It's almost like, again, some people think you shouldn't have little tick lists, like preparation schedules. So before a meeting, I'll always prepare 4 or 5 things. And I've got a little list to make sure I remember to prepare all these things. Yeah. And sometimes people say, oh, you shouldn't really need a checklist, Andy. And they go like, why? Like, jet fighter pilots have them. Brain surgeons have them. It's not a sign of stupidity to have them. It's a sign of stupidity not to have them because you might forget something. And all this stuff and I said we can do loads of section stuff if you want, but just this basic core, know what you want to change, put it in your diary, get someone to hold you to account. If you need a checklist to remind you of all the important things you have to do, you asked me the question, what have I done to make me successful? It's that. That's the most important thing.
There you go, ladies and gents, if you're listening. How Andy Bounds became the UK, I'd say UK, you're going global as well. I know the sort of people that you work with. How you became an A player in your game. There's the 3 tricks. Listen back to that, A players, and what Andy's just mentioned. Andy, it'd be a shame to have you on and not talk about sales. Mm-hmm. You keep mentioning this referrals thing. And now I know. I'm not going to give the secret away, right? I'm not going to give the secret away. You keep mentioning referrals. Why are you so passionate about referrals, mate?
Okay, because I am inherently lazy, Lewis. And what I want to do is I want to be as successful as I can in the shortest time possible. So if I want to meet someone from a company I don't know yet, my options are I do what most people do, the cold approach. So you maybe try and send them a LinkedIn connection request. Or maybe you will cold call them, or maybe you'll send them an email, or maybe you'll go to the house and hope you meet them on the way out. I mean, I wouldn't do that. I think that's against the law, really. So people tend to do this sort of stuff. I hate all that stuff. It's too much hard work. Yeah. It's a bit creepy as well and a bit stalky. But if I want to meet, let's say, your brother Max, and I don't know him, but I know you, I could either cold call Max, it won't work, or I can say to you, Lewis, can you do us a favour? You know your brother Max, I think I can help him. Would you feel comfortable introducing me? And you'll say yes or you'll say no, but either way, it's really quick. Yeah. And if you say yes, you'll have a chat with your brother. Max will say, yeah, go on, we'll have a chat then, Andy. And I'm now talking to Max, this total stranger. And all it took was a phone call between me and you, and we're mates, and a phone call between you and Max, and your mates. 2 easy phone calls. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If I don't do that, I've got to go cold to him, and he's not going to want this. If I send him an email called meeting request, that just goes straight in the bin. So because I'm inherently lazy, I just want to choose the things that are the quickest route to success. I'll tell you another quick route to success. Many organizations in sales have to write proposals, like, a fee quote thing. Now I'm inherently lazy. So when somebody says they want a fee quote, I say, great, I'd be delighted to send it to you. What would you like me to include in it? What are the main headings you want in there? And they go, well, what do you mean? I say, well, what do you want me to write? I don't want to write 10 pages of guff if you just want half a page of brilliance. Like, what do you want to know? And they usually say, I want to know what the outcomes is, what's the program going to look like, how much is it? And I say, right, so if I just do those 3 subheadings, does that give you everything you need? And they go, that's fine. And I said, right, well, can we just agree all that verbally? And then I can do an even shorter proposal. And they go, yeah, that's fine. So by the time I send the proposal, my proposals may be 3 paragraphs long. It's nearly half a side of A4. Whereas if you didn't do that, you're going to have to guess what they want, and you're going to have what you call a planning meeting, though what I call a guessing meeting, because nobody knows, and then you put in every single kitchen sink thing you can, and it's 10 pages of utter bilge, and the customer gets it and goes, I didn't want that, I did want to know the outcomes, and they missed that out, and the price is too expensive anyway. So this idea about, sorry, I should say the word time efficient, not inherently lazy, right? But because I'm time efficient, and I want to maximize my chances of success, If I want to speak to someone I don't know, I find a mutual contact who knows us both, what we call a referral. If I'm doing a proposal because I'm time efficient, I say to the customer, what would you like me to include in it? And they say X, Y, Z, and then I write X, Y, Z. And it doesn't sound very hard when you say it, but if you think, I'm not going to copy what I did last week, this is the power of habits, right? What happens with habits is we're just creatures of habit. We do what we did last week. I bet if you look at an email you sent this week, it looks quite similar to one you sent last week, because we're creatures of habit. Now, that's fine, but if you've got in bad habits, you don't notice it. So if you got in the habit of writing a 10-page rubbish proposal, you don't think anything of it banging out another 10-page rubbish proposal, because that's what you do. That's what you think proposals look like. It doesn't have to, but that's just you're in the habit of it, and it almost becomes fact in your mind. So just taking a step back, if you want to become an A-game person, take a step back and just think to yourself, what would a really time-efficient, inherently lazy person do to be successful? Well, probably what they would do is they would ask their mates to introduce them to other mates. If they were doing a proposal, they'd probably ask what the customer wanted in it. If they were going to talk to a customer and the customer said, tell us a bit about your business, they'd probably say, well, I don't want to bore you about my business. Can I ask you about your business so I can give you some relevant examples? And they say, yes, that's absolutely fine. And now we're talking about the customer instead of ourselves. So if you want to do anything as a result of listening to this, ladies and gents, what I suggest you do is get a piece of paper, and the left-hand side, you write down things that you think could be a bit better for you than they are. All right. So whether it's like getting new opportunities, whether it's like your work-life balance, spending time with your family, whatever it is. So left-hand side, write down things you wish were better than they are. And when you've done that, on the right-hand side, what you do is you think, if I wasn't me, if I was like a world leader in this, like time efficient and frankly inherently lazy, what would I do to achieve these things on the left-hand side? So, for example, work-life balance. If you want a good work-life balance, if you were really good at this, what would you do? You probably would schedule time in your calendar. And I have time in my calendar for this, Lewis. Like 5 till 7, it says family time. All right, so it's scheduled in the calendar. So nobody can put time in my calendar at 5 o'clock for anything else because I've got my family time then. So I wanted to stop working Fridays a bit ago, so I'm going to blow your mind with this. So what I did is I blocked out Fridays and said, Andy's not at work today. I know, cutting edge though it is. So you basically just think, on the left-hand side, this is what I want to be better at. And on the right-hand side, if I was epic at it, this is what I'd do. And once you know that, you can then begin to think, oh, I can see the changes I need to make here.
Yeah. I mean, look, the stuff that you said there, it sounds so simple, but people aren't doing it. And you see all this stuff on Instagram of like, you know, people having to read David Goggins' books or whatever it may be on the next thing. And it's just like, well, just strip it all back, cut all the BS out of it and just look at that diary. If you want a different result, look at the diary, because that diary, if it's like that for the next 5 years, I'm no fortune teller, but if your diary is the same thing for the next 5 years, you are going to be in the same place in the next 5 years. Something needs to change. Everybody's got 24 hours of the day. Something needs to change within those 24 hours to make a difference.
Yeah, and this is not a very pleasant way to speak, but I have used this sentence with my customers quite often. I say two things. Number one, time management is not about time, it's about your diary, right? Mm-hmm. So when people say they didn't have time to prepare for something, I always say, you mean you didn't put preparation time in your diary? So that's the first thing. So time and diary mean exactly the same thing. Anytime you convince yourself it's not your fault, it's time's fault, I will say it is your fault. You didn't put it in your diary. So that's the first thing. So time and diary mean the same thing. And the second thing to remember is that thing I said there. Your diary is your fault. So what you do with your diary is your fault. And when people say, yeah, but sometimes I get invited to things I don't want to go to, well, decline them then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can decline them with charm. You can decline them in a horrible way. I suggest you decline them with charm because that's a nicer way to do it. But I get invited to loads of stuff that I don't want to do. People will often want me to do things face-to-face. Well, face-to-face is fine, but it costs like 5 times the price of doing stuff remotely. And remotely is quicker and it's cheaper. Why don't we just crack on? And the results will be the same anyway. Exactly. So I get invited to do all sorts of face-to-face things. And I do a few of them, but not very many. Because I just say that's not going to be the best use of my time and your money. So why don't we just do this? Because it's cheaper and quicker and better anyway. And people go, yeah, all right then. So the ability to change your diary is really important. This thought, like your diary drives what you do with your time and your diary is your fault, are two of the most empowering things you can have. Because once you stop blaming other people for putting crap in your diary and you realize your diary is your fault, but if you sorted your diary out, you would do the right thing with your time. Well, I mean, that is literally life-changing.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, look, I mean, people listening to this podcast right now, they are A players, and with a sales element onto it, because we've positioned so many times that look, if you want to be an A player, whether it's a leader, you're a manager, CEO, you got to have to get better influential, influence skills.
Hmm.
So, selling is everything. Would you agree with that, Andy? I mean, what's your take on that? Everybody is a salesperson.
Oh, they are, yeah. And I have a slightly skewed view because I think the whole world needs me. But,
I would agree
but,
with that as well. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, you have to sell something, even if you don't like the word sales. I mean, some people say sales is a dirty word, and so if you want to get your children to go to bed, you need to be able to sell that, or you're gonna have a battle every night. And so, like, trying to if you don't like the word sales, the word influence, the word persuade, like the word get your point across, whatever it is, it's really important. But there are certain techniques you can use. So let's give people some quick fire sales techniques. So, all right, number one, I've already said referrals. If you want to get into new customers, ask your existing mates to recommend you to their mates. It's really easy. It won't take very long, and all of a sudden you might get. That's easy. Another one is, I said before, about proposals. If someone says put it in writing, say, well, let's agree what I'm going to put in writing. That'll save you loads of time. Here's another great influencing technique. Never say to a customer, do you want it or not? So if you say to the customer, we can help you, it's going to cost £10,000. How about we go ahead with it? The customer might well say no, because in effect you're saying it's £10,000. Do you want it or not? But the best way to do it is to say to the customer, give them two options. So instead of a yes, no choice, it's like a yes, yes choice. So you say, there's two ways we can help you. We've got this option, that's the 10 grand option. Or if you want, we can take this and this out. You've got your 5 grand option. Which do you prefer? So that's really easy. Any salesperson at all who says you can have it or not, don't be surprised when people say not. You gave them not as a choice. It's like I say to my children, do you want to go to bed? They go, no, I don't, Dad, because you've just given me a yes, no choice. Let's have a look at another one. Oh, this is a good one. What I call the double negative. If you are asking someone, you want them to buy something, but you think they might not. So let's say you want someone to place an order with you or return some paperwork to you or something like this. If you say, would you like to place the order? They might say no. If you say, we've got two options, should we do X or Y? They might say neither. All right, so what you can do is this double negative. What you do is you ask a question with a negative word in it. So you say something like, is there any reason we shouldn't do this? So shouldn't is a negative word. Any reason we shouldn't do this? So if you say to someone, is there any reason we shouldn't do this? If they go no, that means no, there's no reason we shouldn't. So might as well do it. Yeah. Is there any reason you can't get me the paperwork back today? No. Brilliant. I'll look out for it later. Will it do any harm if we do this program now? No? Great, let's get cracking then. But of course, if you ask a question with a negative word in, so one of my favourite closing questions is, do you have any concerns about this? So I make it sound nicer. Say, this all feels good to me. How's it feel to you? Have you got any final concerns? If they go, no, that's cool. If they say, yes, I have got concerns, I always say, oh, I'm glad I asked, what are they? And then you can draw out the objection. So this double negative is really good. So if anyone listening to this sometimes lacks a bit of confidence and they hear the word no a bit more than they want to, rather than saying, shall we go ahead then? Instead you say, is there any reason we can't go ahead then? And if they go no, it means no, there's no reason we can't. So you got your double negative. If they go yes, you go, well, I'm glad I asked, what is it? And then at least you know what their concerns are. So I mean, I can touch about these sort of techniques all day, Lewis, but once you've got a handful of them, you don't need 300 like I need because it's my job to teach it. You just need 3 or 4 that you bang out all the time.
Yeah. Andy, look, I mean, I've worked with you now for quite a while, and you've worked with my teams as well. And I haven't heard these things that you've just come out with. And before you say, I was listening, I take notes on every word that comes out of your mouth. It just goes to show the amount of dedication that you've put towards being the best in what you do. And this is to move away from sales a little bit now to be the A player, just to give people, it could be in operations or it could be in marketing or whatever it may be. It could be in cross stitching. It doesn't matter. The amount of dedication that you've put in to have this toolbox to help people go from A to B to Z. It's just incredible. Those things that you just mentioned there. And I know full well you would sit here and list 300 out straight away. I mean, More about your journey now, because the sales stuff is going to come, and we're going to jump into the 100K club in a while to give people some more tips on how you reach that 100K. Tell me about your journey instead now. What motivates and drives you to be an A player, to become the UK's leading sales coach?
So, I mean, there's a couple of things. One of them is my passion for it. So not passion for sales as such, but my passion for communicating and making communication easy for people. And that stems from my family background. So I know you know this, so sorry to bore you, but everybody else, hope doesn't bore you. So my mum is blind. So when I was a kid, the person who taught me to speak, literally taught me to speak, can't see. So I became naturally very good at describing stuff. So I can describe stuff to my mum in 2 sentences, whereas with respect, Lewis, it might take you 10 sentences because I'm just used to doing it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I used to have this real passion for, sometimes people would explain things to mum and mum wouldn't quite understand it. And she would feel a bit uncomfortable because they were trying to be nice and they would feel uncomfortable. And sometimes they would almost be cross with mum because they didn't understand it. And as a child, I didn't understand what was going on, but I understood that unclear communication was not nice for either party. Yeah. So I sort of understood as a 7-year-old looking at mum's upset, he's a bit upset, blah, blah, blah. And so that was where my passion for it came from. And I slowly sort of realized, I would sort of think, God, if he had just said that differently, mum would have understood it entirely. So that's where the passion came from. Now, as an adult, really, that's my job. When I talk to people and say, God, if you just said that differently, your customers would latch onto that. So I had this passionate thing. That was my geek thing, which was very helpful. So that's what drove it. Another thing that drove it is when I started in business, I thought I had something which was going to help people, because every time I saw a presentation, it was a bit rubbish, I thought, or every time I was in a meeting, they were always really boring. And I just thought there's a lot of common practice with communication, which is really bad. I think I know things that people don't, and so on. And then what I did is I did a ridiculous amount of practice. And the way that I practice, because of what I do, it's not like trying to be a high jumper where the only thing you're doing is battling the high jump. So you practice that on your own. With communication, you have to practice with other people. So what I did is when I started a business, I created what we called a free 37-minute consultation, which was just a marketing thing. So everyone said, was he the 37-minute guy? And it was quite a handy little thing. So when people say, why does it last 37 minutes? I go, because it does. You go, why doesn't it last 40? Well, it only lasts 37 because it does. So that became a bit of a marketing thing. And with these 37 minutes, I would go and see as many people as I could. And I said to them, right, give me 37 minutes. And I promise you, I'm going to teach you 3 things you've never seen before in your life. And that was my way of doing it. And the first time I did it, someone said, that's amazing. Second time I did it, someone had heard everything before. So I thought, right, I need to raise my game. So I started looking for other stuff. And so this continual 37 minutes, just doing it again and again with as many different people as I could. But I guess I'm just a bit of a nerd. I just think it's really interesting. Like if someone sends me a slide deck to say, have a look at it, I go, oh, good, let's have a look at this. Let me see if I can fix it. It's just my hobby.
You're so dedicated to your clients as well. I mean, I'm sitting here as a client as well. I've got you on as a guest.
I love him. Yeah, I love him.
You are. You're like, Lewis, just call me whenever. I'm sitting around doing. You even said before. You what happened recently? You had is it okay to share? You had a surgery, a hip surgery.
Yeah, that's right. Hip replacement. Yeah.
Call me in when I'm on the hospital bed recovering, because I just want to help you out and get you where you want to get to. That's what you're all about. Your first thing you said to me, Lewis, what are you looking to achieve? What do you want to achieve? Tell me more about that. He just went on a journey with me where it's like, bloody hell, this guy is not just knows his stuff and can get me there, but he cares.
Yeah, really I do care, and that kind of helps, I guess. And also, I mean, it's this sometimes can sound annoying to some people, so I'll try and say it nicely. So I'm lucky because I don't need the work. So if I'm talking to someone and I'm not the best person for them, I'll say, so I was talking to a guy yesterday. He had a really interesting sounding company, and what he wanted, half I'm really good at, but half isn't quite my thing. And so I just said to him, you've been really honest and really open. I know exactly what you want. And to be blunt, I'm really good at topics 1 and 2, but I think you need somebody else for 3 and 4. Would you rather have someone who was good at all 4, or do you want to dual source it? He goes, I'd rather have someone who's good at all 4. I said, well, let me ring around. Let me see if I can find someone who's good for you. And I spoke to my network last night, found someone, put them in contact. And so that's good. So I may or may never speak to this guy again from yesterday. I don't know. But I feel I helped him. He didn't give me any money. I just helped him. I put in contact with someone I know. And the person who I know, I've helped them as well. So I think I've done the right thing there. Now, the reason I say sometimes that annoys people is is people say, well, it's all right for you, Andy, because you've been doing this for 20 years and you probably don't need the work. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I have to sell my soul a little bit, and I understand that. But as soon as you feel confident, have an absolute passion for improving the other person's position. That's the thing. So whoever you're talking to, if you're talking to your children, if you're talking to your parents, if you're talking to your loved one, if you're talking to your customer or your colleagues or whatever, just look at them and think those two questions that you just mentioned, that what do you want to achieve and how can I help you get there, are the two most empowering questions you can ask. So what do you want to achieve and how can I help you get there? Imagine saying that to your kids or to your family or to your customers or to your colleagues. We never say things like this. Yeah. But asking the question, passionately caring, then it means that you and the customer, you and the other person, are in no way in conflict. You're just walking together, holding hands, having a lovely journey together. And if it happens to be a customer, yeah, they pay you a bit of money, but the outcomes they get dwarf the money they pay you, so everyone wins.
Exactly. I mean, you're talking about whether it's £1 million business or 100 million or 1 billion. Because I know you work with those as well. Then look, your time that you spend with them multiplies what their revenue and their profits that you can add to it. But that's not the point, is it? You're doing it because you care so much, whether with a small business or a large business, it doesn't matter.
That's right, yeah. And as long as it's fair, if I help, so I mean, many years ago, I used to charge, it's all different now, but I used to charge £2,000 a day. And I helped a company win a deal that was worth millions and millions of pounds. And I'd only been with them for one day. So I got paid 2,000 and they got millions and millions and millions. And I was really pleased for them for about a minute. And then I was really pissed off because I thought that's not a fair split. So it's not that I want half the millions and millions, but I just thought I'm undercharging at £2,000. So overnight I thought, right, £4,000, fuck it, we'll just go with £4,000. And the very next day I went for a meeting. Someone says, how much does it cost? And I said, oh, it's £4,000. And they said, that sounds quite a lot. But because in my soul, I knew it wasn't quite a lot because I knew the value I brought. When someone says that's quite a lot, I said, no, it isn't. And let me explain why. Because I knew my own worth. And so I think if you know your own worth, then all of a sudden you feel more comfortable with all these sorts of things anyway.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Look, and this is where it stems into so many different branches now. Talk about confidence, communication skills, feeling comfortable with it, what you charge. There's so much we can go into. But guys, this is the end of the A Players episode, and he's going to jump in for 5 or 10 minutes into the 100K club for those people that are members of how you can personally, not talking about business now, but how you can personally increase your personal income as an A player. But for all the A Player podcasts listeners that are listening to this free episode, Andy, thank you so much for coming on. And how can they get in touch with you, by the way? How can they follow you? And what's the best way to read more of your content?
Oh, just through LinkedIn is probably easiest. I could give you like 4 or 5 things. Just go to LinkedIn. If anyone's got any questions, just so Bounds, my surname is like out of bounds. So Andy Bounds, just go on LinkedIn and you'll find me. And just if you got any questions, I post stuff every day and there's loads of free stuff on there. So that'd be the best thing.
Absolutely. Andy Bounds has got lots of books as well. So, guys, remember the fee. There is a fee to this podcast, and that is that it is free. But to pay the fee, you've got to share it with somebody else. So if there's any gold nuggets in this that you can share it with somebody, just make sure you click share and slide the link into their DMs and say, hey, look, you need to listen to this podcast with Coach Lewis Haydon and Andy Bounds. Catch you on the next episode, guys.